Did you know one of the greatest defeats in U.S. military history was also one of the greatest victories for the Native American resistance against a brutal and oppressive campaign? Most people know it as Custer's last stand, but to the Lakota and Cheyenne, it was the Battle of Greasy Grass. The dark history actually begins years before the battle. In 1868, the U.S. government signed a treaty guaranteeing the Lakota ownership of the Black Hills. But when gold was discovered just a few years later, thousands of miners flooded the area, and instead of honoring the treaty, the government broke its promise and demanded that the Native people surrender their sacred land. When they refused to give up rightfully what was theirs, they were labeled as hostile and targeted for removal. On June 25, 1876, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, an officer deeply involved in enforcing these oppressive policies, made what would become a fatal mistake. Believing he was attacking a small village, he split his forces and charged into one of the largest gatherings of Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors ever assembled. Led by leaders like Crazy Horse, Gall, and inspired by Sitting Bull's vision, Native warriors united to defend their people and surrounded Custer's isolated battalion. Within about an hour, every single one of Custer's roughly 210 men was dead. According to Cheyenne oral tradition, after the battle, women pierced Custer's eardrum with sewing awls so he would hear better in the afterlife, a symbolic act tied to the belief that he had ignored and violated peace agreements. For Indigenous nations, this wasn't just a battlefield victory. It was a powerful act of resistance against broken treaties, stolen land, and violent oppression. Sadly, the triumph didn't last. The defeat enraged the U.S. government, which escalated its military campaign even further. Within a few years, many of the tribes were forced onto reservations, and the Black Hills were taken despite the treaty. Today, the Battle of Little Bighorn remains one of the most powerful reminders that history depends on whose story you're told.